Hey, what's good with everybody, man? I hope everybody's having a productive day, feeling blessed. And like I always say, it's one life, one chance. We only got one chance to do this right, so let's get it done. With that being said, I got another video for you guys today. This one, I'm gonna take it back to memory lane. First and foremost, I want to get a shout out to one of the new producers that I'm working with, PZ the producer. I've been dropping videos on my shorts showcasing his music and his beats. Go ahead and check him out for all my music artists, man. He does a diversity of different beats, West Coast beats, old school slap, Detroit's type beats. He's versatile in his beat making. And I do look forward to producing music with this individual and showcasing it on this platform, as well as the song that I just did a music video for today by C-Dubs. His Instagram is C-Dub Official. It's going to be a Woody remix, The Streets Are Calling. Stay tuned, man. I put a lot of money into this music video. I had to save up a lot of money just this video production and this beat in itself. So, I hope it all pays off, and you guys, blow it up for me, share it with your friends and your family, Let's get it going, man. Let's get this video coming. It should be coming soon in the week. So hit the subscription button. Always hit the like and always leave a comment. I have several questions that I do need to answer, but these next two videos I got to drop are regarding some specific issues by subscribers that wanted me to talk about it. And then I'm going to get back to answering your guys' questions before I drop more videos about, my prison stories. So let's get into it. Everybody, is aware of what took place in High Desert with Armando Quinn, Cat 3, Nuestra Familia. And prior to this incident, I've always mentioned his name a few times as the individual was the last one that I had to work with. I had the pleasure of working with. First and foremost, I want to send my prayers and condolences to his family, regardless of what sides we're on. Even though we're on the opposite ends of the track, it doesn't matter. I don't want to see nobody die in jail. I don't want nobody to lose their family members because of jail and prison politics, but it happens. So, I send my prayers to his family. May he rest in peace. We got to show love to those that pass away, no matter who they are, what lifestyle they come from, or what's taking place, whatever the circumstances may be. Because my cousin died, and no matter whether he was active and I'm not, that never mattered to me. It's just a simple fact that that's my family. So I can only pay that same respects to others as I would want the same respect paid to my cousin. May he rest in peace. One life, one chance. I'll start off like this. After coming back I went from Oklahoma back to Arizona, back to California, doing the shoe term, finishing my shoe term, and getting transferred back to California from the involuntary transfers that were taking place from CDCR to these private corporate companies, these CCAs. And I landed back in SAD-FC yard, level 4, 180. What happened around this time was this facility lost contact with Corcoran Shoe. This was a time that a filter was going out called the realignment filter. Obviously, if I may have mentioned it before in other videos, but the realignment filter was basically, since the feds were reaching out to the California prisons, trying to say they still had jurisdiction over some of these prisons so they can accumulate the money and continue to have the possession of power. The state faction in Pelican Bay was issuing out this filter saying, no, these certain particular prisons will answer Pelican Bay. These certain particular prisons will answer to Corcoran Shoe or to Tehachapi. All these carnales, split the California faction amongst each other. And we put pretty much the feds on disregard. They also put Cuete, Gerald Rubalcaba, who was the intern general or the acting general at the time, on freeze due to his embezzlement scandal and his investigation that he was MIA. And they also provided us a list of federal prisons and all the carnales that were in these particular prisons who we needed to disregard, because being that they're in the federal prison system now, they have pretty much are responsible for establishing yards over there. No more jurisdiction belongs to them when it comes to California prisons and us. This was a filter that was delivered to me by Mondo. But when I showed up in 2011, something had took place prior. Being that a lot of this was going on, the authority in charge at the time, his name was Francisco Dominguez, aka Listo, from San Jose, from Palmas. He was the authority in charge. But what My celly didn't tell me at the time who was the second in command at the time. When I showed up and I started answering, I became the Norteño Administration 1, which was responsible for all the in-house security, is that Mondo Quinn was sending a lot of individuals out from Corcoran Shu that were landing in Sadev Sea Yard with direct orders to take over and establish communication with Corcoran Shu. Listo and Marcelli at the time didn't want to relinquish their position of power and the authority in charge being responsible for this yard. So we're retrieving everything that these individuals were coming out of Corcoran Shu from, and we're filtering out what they were going to regard and disregard and getting these individuals removed off the yard. It was a strong power struggle that was taking place, and a lot of hermanos were stabbing each other in attempts to fight over this yard per Mondo Quinn. When I show up, things already had died down. They had removed 3 individuals that Mondo Quinn had sent out from Corcoran Shu, got rid of them, and them individuals went to Salinas Valley and reported Sadev Sea Yard at the time. I'm on the same tier with my celly that removed me at the time, but we're in 2 different cells, but we're communicating. But the authority in charge at the time was Listo from San Jose. You know, he had a clap, he had a cell phone. You know, he was one of the biggest, distributors for us. He was bringing in a lot of money. He was making a lot of money in that yard, but he was freelancing. He wasn't providing no money to the C payrolls that Mondo Quinn provided for the Pelican Bay and Corcoran Shu and Tehachapi. He was keeping all the money to himself, but he was telling us that his wife was holding the money. She was the household bank at the time, the regiment bank for this jurisdiction, and that she was responsible in sending the money, and that she was taking care of it. The whole time, his wife was pretty much spending all the money that they were bringing in, making, and sending out on herself, his kids, and him. But the whole time we were convinced that the authority in charge was sending money to the back, to Mondo and everybody else on the C payroll, like Sombra, Smiley, and a couple other individuals like Mateo, stuff like that. IGI cracks Listo and his celly. His celly was Gato from Eastside San Jose. They get ambushed early in the morning when we wake up. Gato used to walk with a cane. So Gato put his cane on the door, and they made it seem like he was in possession of a weapon. So they started spraying him and beating up Gato and Listo while Listo was in the back breaking the cell phones, flushing all the paperwork. The thing about Listo is he didn't like hooping nothing other than drugs. So he had all the documents, the household authority in charge, the whole report for because when you're running a COC and you're running a yard, there's a thing we call like a daily log or a yearly log. We'll pretty much jot down all the individuals that came, that went, that been transferred to what facilities, B&L list, who was in what, doing what, who has status at the time, who's in contact with who, reports that went to the street regiments, that came from the street regiments, reports that came from Corcoran Shu, Pelican Bay. You got to jot down every vital detail when it pertains to that household. And after every 5 to 7 years, you can either revise it and dumb it down, or you can send it to the back to Corcoran Shu or Pelican Bay so they can see what's been taking place throughout time as you start a new daily log. It was pretty much log reports. That's what they're called when you're the authority in charge running a facility. Lisa was in possession with all that, and he had it all on the table. He was just leaving it in there on his desk. So he was trying to rip it up while they were spraying him, while they're beating him up. And me and my celly were at the time, we watched them drag Listo and Gato out. They gag and bagged them, cuffed them behind their backs, hog-tied them, and were dragging them on their stomachs out, and they were maced and sprayed. So Listo goes to the hall, Gato goes to the hall, and they both get validated for all the paperwork they possessed. They found drugs, they found the cell phone, everything. Lisa's one of the individuals that after I got removed the second time, I landed on a tier across from him, and he's the one that pretty much gave me the heads up, like, bro, if you go to Corcoran Shu, it's over. Your career's over. They're gonna take your life, man. You might as well just give it up. He's the one that gave me the heads up. So I gotta respect the man for that, and I owe that to him. So anyways, my celly winds up, he outranked me by like 5 years. He had 5 more years over me when it comes to being an hermano, individuals with status. I let him take the authority charge. I become second in command, responsible for the facility and contact with the street regiment. He's the authority in charge. He's in contact with the C's in Pelican Bay and Corcoran Shu and whatever he has to do. The only thing is my celly only had one person keeping in touch with him, which was his baby mama, who wasn't frequent in his life. And one of the biggest responsibilities as the authority in charge is to keep in touch with the carnales in the back. Thankfully, within that 4-month period after Listo and Gato went to the hole pending transfer to Corcoran Shoe, an individual from Sacramento comes out. I can't remember his name. I just know his last name was Bautista. That's all I remember, like the wrestler. He comes out. He shoots us the Wheeler. It's from Mondo Quinn. Mondo pretty much gave us an update, like, hey, you guys have been out of contact for this period amount of time. This yard is going to be questioned and put on freeze, and a lot of individuals are going to be deemed if you guys don't make contact with us in the back. And that's when I received to see payroll of what carnales need to be receiving $200 a month on their books faithfully. The realignment filter of what facilities answer to what shoes and what carnales need to be addressed and who are the regiment commanders for certain facilities and the street regiment contacts. Mondo Quinn shot that to us. The only problem is my cellies didn't have no forms of three-way communication. I did. I had a lot of people keeping in touch with. I had a couple of girls that I've knocked on pen pal websites when I was out of state. I had the means to communicate with the back. So Mondo knew me. Mondo didn't know my celly, even though I addressed Mondo that, my celly is the appointed authority in charge, but I'm the means of communication. Still, Mondo was talking to me, and I was pretty much giving the direct orders to Mondo. The thing was, the homie Bautista from Sacramento that came out, Mondo wanted them to be in contact in secrecy too. That way, if the authority in charge or myself was to get caught, he had another forms of communication to reach back to this facility, and he'd be the individual to take over if me or my celly was to leave the yard. I had access to a phone at the time through the Sureños. I was real close with the mesa, and they used to always let me use their phone like when they're in their day room. So I had their phone, access to their phone all day, every day. Without question, they'll let me use it for a couple hours in a day, faithfully every day. I wind up, Mondo shoots me a list of codes and what they mean. And he also taught me this was our forms of communication at the time, and I can relinquish this information because it's not used no more. But he was pretty much, every time he would write me a letter, it'd be above the line. No letters would touch the lines. But if I looked closely and one of the letters was to touch the line, I needed to extract that out. That'd be the message. And I would go through the whole letter, and he'd be like 5-page letters front and back, and I'd be extracting every single letter that touched that line, put them together in order, and it'd be a hidden message, an encrypted message. Along with, if I came across any of these other words that he particularly written down, which was a lot of them, those words meant something. Cowboys could have meant hit. Niners could have meant this. So, we had to figure out a way to finesse these letters. So, yeah, I made copies of it, and I put it only for my bundle, my celly's bundle, and the homie that came out. We all had to have copies of that and how we're going to communicate with them. So I had to talk to my people on the streets to recognize that same particular letter because they were stamping their letters. So they couldn't three-way their letters exactly. So my people on the streets had to rewrite that same letter, and I told them to pay close attention to the letters. That if that letter's touching that line, make sure that letter's touching that line when you get it to me. That's how I was able to communicate with Mondo Quinn for almost a year. The thing that made me laugh, and it's probably going to make some of you laugh, I have to explain it, is that in prison, there's a show that comes on, I think, ABC. It's called General Hospital. Everybody watches it. It's the go-to show. It's like some mob type stuff mixed with everything, like soap opera. And I was reading the names. All these carnales that were on the C payroll had their names and CDCs, their housing units. And Mondo Quinn pretty much told me, however, hermanos and individuals with status on the yard are to be assigned 1 to 2 carnales to keep in touch with at all times. Take care of them, shoot them stamps, shoot them writing package, shoot them a package if they need it. But they had code names. And every single one of these individuals that had a code name, I noticed it was a girl. So yeah, of course, we're going to communicate as if we're talking to a female. That's how you throw the prison administration off. But I started reading the names, and I seen like Elizabeth, and Carla, and a bunch of other names. And I'm like, man, these names sound real familiar to me. Mind you, I watch General Hospital every day at 2 o'clock. And then as I kept going over my celly, I told him, I go, hey, fool, that's how bored these fools are in the hole. And the Corcoran Shoe is that Mondo used every single female character that's on General Hospital as coded names, like Brittany and everybody else, Maxie. They were all the code names for carnales in the back. And me and my Sally got a big kick out of it. I was like, damn, Mondo, let me come up with something a little bit better than that. I'm a little more crafty. You took a soap opera that you watch at 2 o'clock every day. So we had a funny laugh about that. I never got the chance to tell Mondo, like, man, that was pretty clever. I mean, dumb and clever at the same time because I caught it. I don't think nobody else did. I also, while gaining access to the cell phone, I talked to the homie Bautista's sister so we can keep in touch with her as an authority in charge and the second in command. And we had to create our own ways of coding and encrypting letters to her. That way she can read them and understand the messages that we needed her to relay to Corcoran Shu, to this prison, to that prison. It took us about 2 weeks of establishing coded messages and what they mean and what she needs to do, providing her all the street regiment numbers to three-way our information, our messages to certain contacts, getting in touch with certain C's, et cetera, where the finances go. She was going to be the household bank now that Lista was gone because we had to start from scratch. And we were already pending investigation due to all the unjustifiable removals that Lista was doing and Masali was turning a blind eye to because they didn't want to relinquish the authority in charge per Mondo's request. That's how I was able to get in touch with Mondo. And I used to write Mondo all the time. He was the one that assigned me the C payroll. So what I had to do was there was 8 individuals that had status at the time on the yard. And I had to make sure there was proof that these individuals were writing these carnales. I needed JPay receipts from their families to show proof to indicate that their families were sending these carnales. If it was 20, 40, 30 bucks at a time, something was better than nothing because we were still up and running. I was getting some people to start running it in for me, and I actually busted a CO. Me and my Sally busted a CO, and he was actually able to provide us with our own phones. It took like a 3 or 4 months process, in which I'll tell you guys later in another video. But when we finally started getting the revenue and productivity going on after so long, but I was able to keep in touch with Mondo. Mondo would write me once a month, basic instructions, basic information, who was in Corcoran Shu, what's happening at these facilities, at that facility. He kept us abreast throughout California while we were still getting this program together. Because when Listo left and what Listo did, a lot of it was irreparable damages that we had to pick. We had to start from the rummage. We had to start from the bottom. So we had to put it together. We had to rearrange the COC. We had to get investigation reports from everybody else about as to what happened, what took place with Listo. Then we had to file an investigation report on Listo for all his acts and what he's done and how much money he was gaining, how much money he was providing to the household, how much money did he say he was going to the household bank, how much money did he report to us saying that he was sending back to the shoes. It was a big old investigative spectacle that took almost to the moment I got removed. Per Mondo Quinn and per Thudi from Cucamonga, the Mexican Mafia dude, them two both together played a part in my removal because Thudi told Mondo that I broke my word and that he couldn't allow that to take place when in fact Mondo was already investigating me anyways for a lot of stuff that was being reported for me from 2 years ago, that everything that I did out of state, like the freelancing and everything else that I'm going to talk about in another video because I got to break down each and every charge and why they're against the laws. But a particular incident happened on this yard that I'm going to explain in another video because it has something to do with Thudi and Artie from King Cobras and the war that went on between them that caused this particular incident where me and Thudi had to talk a couple of times through letters, through the mesa. That way I could provide him on my word that I wasn't going to do nothing and to allow him to take care of his business. But because something took place right after that, Thudi felt that I broke my word, that I wasn't keeping my word to him, the promise that I made him that nothing was going to happen on this yard, nothing was going down, which wasn't even the case. So all that did by Thudi telling Mondo that, I broke my word, I didn't keep my word, pretty much gave the stamp of approval that Mondo needed to get removed on the charges I was already facing anyways, because I was guilty of all my charges regardless. I couldn't run from my past. I couldn't run from those mistakes. I did make those mistakes. Some of them justifiable. Some of them I was just ignorant, misled, misguided, wasn't taught right. And then I based a lot of my decisions on my own self-education, thinking that it was okay when it really wasn't. But that's my story about Mondo Quinn. I just thought the General Hospital part was the funniest part to me because, boredom kicked in. Sometimes, you get stuck in that box. Sometimes you can't think outside that box. You just going based on what's in front of you. But yeah, I was in touch with that individual for a while. I always heard he was a high-ranking Nuestra Familia member, Cat 3, young, very educated, brought up in the city of Delano, played a big role in starting up his gang in his neighborhood in Delano, in a city that's pretty much labeled Southern California, that's goes to war with Bakersfield and every other Sudanese within that little local area, like Alpa and all that stuff. And they take pride in their city, as you can see in the picture that he's wearing that T-shirt with the Huelga bird, because the Huelga bird pretty much that's where it started in Delano. They take pride in that Huelga bird because that's where Cesar Chavez did a lot of his walking and a lot of his marching, a lot of his protesting in the city of Delano. So imagine the Palmetto mind state that him and his homies have growing up in Delano, California. Those Northerners, they take a great sense of pride of who they are because of the founding logo of the Huelga bird, the symbolization of the Palmetto lands, the farm workers. That's true Palmettoism right there. So once again, rest in peace to Mondo Quinn. Hope you're in a better place. Me and him I can't say we ended on bad terms. He just ended my career, but he had the power to do so. And I give it to him. Couldn't combat him, couldn't rebuttal it, couldn't fight him. The best man won. And then I just proceeded on with my life. And as you can see, I'm here today just doing the best that I can to regain positivity, gain some type of success, gain the sense of power that I've always strived for, but in a positive aspect, in a different limelight. So with that being said, man, I hope you guys like my story. I'm going to do one video in particular that a subscriber asked me to share, and then I'll break it down about Thudi and Artie and Mondo, how it all came together, and my charges. That being said, man, I send my love. One life, one chance. We only got one chance to do this right. Let's get it done. Peace.